Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on how to be an effective mentor and a responsive mentee. My name is Nhlanhla Sibanyoni, and I will be with you the entire webinar today. I'm not flying solo. I've got a presenter that I'll introduce to you a little bit later. So I just want to start now with the bit of admin about the platform. So Mr. Jacobs, please move to the next slide. Right, so this is what we call, the platform is called GoToWebinar. And we are going to, for example, if you have trouble with your sound, you can click on the test audio settings for a clearer sound. You are also muted now since this is a webinar. So this is how it will work. There will be uninterrupted workshop throughout until at the end we'll have a Q&A session. You can ask your questions or type in your questions under the questions tab. That will be answered later during the Q&A session. Like I said earlier, you're muted now. That's the mute and unmute button. You can use this during the Q&A session for you to ask your question verbally. You can also raise your hand to ask your question. All right, so as I said, I'm not flying solo. I would like to introduce you to our presenter today, Mr. Petrus Jacobs. Petrus is regarded as a dynamic facilitator and a motivational speaker. He is deeply passionate about one thing and one thing only: for people to discover their greatness within. He enthusiastically equips people with skills, techniques, and strategies for them to be empowered to greatly improve their quality of their lives. His passion for empowering people is the main reason why he was awarded the Neuralink People's Award twice for rendering outstanding training, as well as Equilibria School of Life Lecturer of the Year Award. Mr. Petrus Jacobs, we can't really wait to learn from you.
Thank you very much, Nhlanhla. It is fantastic to spend this time here with you and also with people who are passionate enough about education that they are willing to make the time to spend this with us this afternoon. One of my, I suppose I can call her a role model because of her extreme wisdom, has once said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And I believe that within the education space, it is not just important for us to impart knowledge or skills or getting our learners to change or turn or adapt a new kind of attitude, but also getting the people that we interact with to also understand their value as a human being. Because when we, in the education space, when we can make our learners, young or old, when we can make them feel better about themselves as human beings, we have been extremely successful, whether it is simply just as a human being, or whether it is as a teacher, a lecturer, a principal, a parent, or at the church, or wherever you may be moving. We need to keep in mind, people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But boy, oh boy, people will never forget how you made them feel. And when you and I choose to become a mentor or allow ourselves to be mentored then we are allowing ourselves, in other words, to be in a space of making a greater difference to the world we live in. And when I say the world we live in, I'm talking about your world. We don't have to change the whole world. But when we can change one person in our lives and a second person, and positively impacting a third person, slowly but surely, we are making a difference in our world. And when we're looking at what we're aiming to achieve regarding the outcomes of this webinar, we need to address the question, who is a mentor? What are the benefits of mentoring? What could the role and responsibilities of a mentor be? Let's have a look at the different types of mentors or mentoring, and then also how to be an effective mentor. Please remember, our focus is not only on to mentor someone else, but also how we can get the most out of being mentored by others. And then in that context, what are the characteristics of a great mentee? Now, before we get this ball rolling, we're going to do a quick poll. So I want you to please identify. Now, it could either be by tapping on your cell phone if you have logged into this webinar on your cell phone, or you would then click on your laptop, the screen, by using the mouse or the mouse pad of the laptop. Choose whatever options you think would give you a relatively accurate idea of what you think mentoring is. So let me just say this again. So I'm now going to share a poll with you, and that will then allow you to choose either one or two of these three options, or if you think maybe all three of these three options. So please, will you continue selecting what you think mentoring is? Oh, great stuff. I see you are actively involved. Wonderful. I see that more than 70% of you have already given us your point of view. There we go. We've just surpassed 80%. So the people who've made the daring decision to allocate their time, which is very valuable, 85% of those people who decided to attend this webinar have already shared their point of view. They've already voted. So if you have logged in only now, we are busy with a quick poll to just get some idea of what you think. What is your point of view? What is your perception of mentoring? In other words, you are asking yourself, do you think mentoring is there to support and encourage? To support people that they may maximize their potential? And or supporting people to resolve especially personal, social, or maybe even psychological problems and difficulties? My goodness, we're nearly on to 90% of those attending who decided to share their point of view, what they think mentoring is all about. Ladies, gentlemen, if you have logged in only now, we are busy with a quick poll just to try to establish what your thinking is regarding what mentoring is. So if you logged in on your phone, you can just tap on the screen of the phone to make your choice, or maybe even choices. And if you have logged into this webinar, you can then just click using your mouse. Do you think that mentoring is there to support and encourage people to manage their own learning? Or perhaps you think mentoring is to support people so that they may maximize their potential, and or mentoring is supporting people to resolve especially personal, social, or maybe even psychological problems. All right. Thank you very much for your active participation. That is awesome. Right, I'm now going to close the poll. And after I have closed the poll, we have reached 91%. Wow, great stuff. Thank you very much. Right, I'm now going to close the poll. And then I'm going to share with you what you have been saying, what you're thinking. Now, please note that the percentage that we see, the 65%, simply means that 65% of those who have voted say that mentoring is to support and encourage people to manage their own learning. 88% say that mentoring is to support people so that they may maximize their potential. And then 46% said supporting people to resolve especially personal, social, or, and then the psychological problems did not appear on the poll, and I apologize for that. Now, ladies, gentlemen, when we're talking about mentoring, we need to understand that, and I agree with the 88%, that mentoring is to support people so that they, in other words, those people we are mentoring, can maximize their potential. I also agree with those who have said that mentoring is there to support and encourage people to manage their own learning. Now, that's very, very important, because as a mentor, we may never, and I'm going to say this word again, never take responsibility for another person's learning. Now, what I mean by that is when you, as an individual, are in a, let's call it official or unofficial mentoring, or mentorship relationship with another person, you as the mentor will never take responsibility for that person's learning. Your role as a mentor is to do whatever you can to support, to encourage them to manage their own learning, to take responsibility for their own learning. And because of them taking responsibility for their own learning, it means, it leads to that they will then maximize their potential. Mentoring is not about addressing psychological issues or social issues or personal issues. I think that the moment we get involved in mentoring, trying to address personal issues, then maybe it's more of a friendship than it is mentoring. I'm hoping that that makes sense. So the intention of mentoring is, to put it very short and sweet, people to manage their own learning, and so that they can maximize their potential. And obviously that is what we would want, not only for those people we are mentoring, but also for ourselves. Question. Who is a mentor? And you know what is the great news? The great news is that any person who has influenced your life up to this point in time has been a mentor in some way or another. Whether it was a parent, whether it was a grandparent, whether it was a pastor, a preach, a teacher, a friend, an employee, or any person who has influenced you in one way or another has unofficially, informally mentored you. And guess what? The flip side of that coin, the other side of that coin is also true, that without us knowing it, we have also been a mentor to other people. Because if we have influenced another person, whether it is your child or children or spouse, or if you have influenced a friend or friends, then it means that in an unofficial, informal way that you have been a mentor to them. In other words, when we're asking ourselves the question, who is a mentor? It could be any person that you have influenced or any person that has had an influence on you. For the sake of this webinar, we're going to focus on any person who's got more experience than you could be your mentor. Or, and when I say more experience, I'm talking about a specific field. Not necessarily, and please, this is very important. When I'm talking about a mentor is somebody who mentors you because they've got more experience, I'm not talking about only talking about number of years of experience, but it could happen that you, and I'm going to use myself as an example. I am 52 years old, and guess what? There are certain subjects that I have not taught before. So if I, for example, were to be given a post and to teach something that I have not taught before, guess what is going to happen? I have teaching experience. I have teaching experience in a number of subjects and all the discipline and classroom management and. But I have no experience with this new subject that I'm supposed to be teaching. And guess what? Then I'm going to need a mentor. I'm going to need someone who's willing to, metaphorically speaking, take my hand and guide me, irrespective of whether this person is younger than me, my age, or older than me. In other words, ladies, gentlemen, a mentor is not only a mentor because they are older than you, or if you are a young person logging into this webinar, you can also be someone else's mentor, depending on your level of experience in a specific field. Now, I have quickly mentioned informal mentoring. Now, when we're talking about friends, family, books, Bible, church, motivational speakers, or social media, movies, there are so many things that influence our lives. And that could be one way of looking at mentoring, a relatively informal way of mentoring. For the sake of this webinar, we're going to look at a more informal way, a more unofficial way of mentoring, so that you can unofficially, informally be an effective mentor. And if you then choose to be wise enough to be a responsive mentee. Mentoring is any relationship between two individuals. One individual with experience in a particular field and another person within the same field, and this other person is looking for guidance to learn, to know more, to grow in that specific field. In other words, the mentor will share experience with the mentee, will share knowledge with this mentee. The mentor will act as a sounding board and will obviously also give advice. Now, when we're asking ourselves the question, why would I want to be a mentor? Because we already have so much to do. I don't know about you, but people I know in the education space have so much to do. And there's always more to do than time allows you to be able to get to effectively. So a lack of time is a serious challenge that teachers or people within the education space is faced with. A lack of time. So why would anybody in their right mind want to metaphorically raise their hand and say, okay, I want to be a mentor? And I want to answer that question by giving a quote from Winston Churchill when he said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." In other words, ladies, gentlemen, when you are courageous enough, when you are daring enough to say, I want to mentor other people, one person, two people, three, it doesn't matter, but you are raising your hand and you are saying, I want to give more of what I know, give more of myself, then you are on a career growth path. In other words, you would have the people you are mentoring, the person or people you are mentoring. You are, in other words, empowering them to grow as an individual, to be better at what they do, because we want people to be better at what they do so that they can be more productive. So why would we choose to be a mentor? So that we can not only grow ourselves, so that you and I as mentors do not only become better at what we do, but we are also strengthening our own skills. We are also getting better and better at what we do. And as a result of that kind of example we are setting, we are sometimes, without having to say a word, we can get them to want to develop themselves. We can then get them to want to be more productive, to strengthen their own skills, and then to correct whatever issues could be involved concerning their performance. In other words, why would we choose to be a mentor? Because we choose to make a life by what we give to others. Now, please note, ladies and gentlemen, you and I in the education space have got so much to give. Again, I say it doesn't matter whether you're young or old, but particularly the young people in the education space. In other words, let's say, just as an example, let's say you've been in education for example, 5 years. That does not mean that you cannot be a mentor, because I can guarantee you, without having to know you, I know that you have something to share with others. You know something, you can do something that other people at your organization are not as good at as you. So whatever it is that you know, or whatever it may be that you can do, there's always someone else that can benefit from your skills, that can benefit from your knowledge, that can benefit from the way in which you do things. So whether you're young or old, anybody can mentor another person. Let's have a look at the benefits of mentoring. Now, the benefits could be for the individual being mentored, Or the interesting thing is you as a mentor can also benefit from being a mentor. And then the school or the university or the business where you work at would definitely also benefit from that. Now, why would an individual benefit from being mentored? Because it improves their skills, it improves their knowledge or increases their knowledge. In other words, eventually they will feel better about themselves. Hence, psychologically, they would feel better about themselves. And that then leads to an improvement in productivity. Not only that, but when people feel better about themselves, then it improves the possibility that they will be better at doing what they're doing, more productive, and contributing more to this organization. The mentor would also benefit because it is in giving that we shall receive. I'm going to repeat that. One of the benefits of being a mentor is that as human beings, somehow, at some level, we know that it is in giving of ourselves, it is in giving that we shall receive. In other words, when you are mentoring someone else, you are also actually in some wonderful, however weird it may be, but you are also positively impacting yourself. You are doing yourself a favor. You are doing yourself a great, great service to be a mentor to others, because it is in giving of ourselves that we will receive more from life, more from the organization, more from those people we are mentoring. And when we're looking at the benefits for the organization, when any school, any university, any business has got better qualified people, when they've got happier staff members, when they've got committed staff members, come on, come on. We know that that is what organizations want for themselves and want for us. And it definitely, when you've got better qualified staff members and more staff members are happier, more staff members are committed and dedicated because they are more competent, and it increases their level of confidence, then it has a very positive impact on the staff turnover. Hence, the staff turnover will reduce. And that is always a good thing for an organization. And guess what, ma'am? Guess what, sir? When you, as a mentor, have mentored someone and you leave the organization, they will then take over the role of the mentor. Not because you say so, but because they would want to. And that then leads to within the organization, it leads to a continuation of something. In other words, if you are a superstar at your organization and you choose not to share, you choose not to share your knowledge, you choose not to share your wisdom, you choose not to share your skills with someone else, and you leave one day, then the organization will be much poorer, worse off, because you have left with your knowledge, you have left with your experience, you have left this organization with your skills. But what is the better thing to do? What is the wiser thing to do? And that is to share your knowledge, your experience, and your skills with someone else, so that when you should leave this organization, that there's a continuation of your mark, your footprint, your legacy that you have left within this organization. In other words, ma'am, sir, there will always be something that came from you that you are now leaving with them. And then long after you have left, You can know that this organization is better because of your contribution. Again, I say, you as an individual will benefit from being a mentor. And when you choose to be mentored by someone else, you will also benefit from this. And not only will the mentor or the mentee benefit, but also the organization. And to me, ladies and gentlemen, this sounds like win-win at its best. Now, what's the role and responsibilities of a mentor? We need to understand two things. Number one, a mentor needs to be a good role model. Because if you are not a role model in a specific field, then why would you mentor someone else? Or the other way around, why would someone be eager, or why would someone else want to be mentored by you? In other words, you need to set a good example. You need to be a good role model. And you noticed that I put in brackets, not perfect. Please, we are not trying, we never, ever trying to move towards perfection. We're never trying to be perfect because you are not perfect. And if nobody told you this before, well, then I am the one to tell you this. You are not perfect, and you will never be perfect. And we should not try to be perfect because we would be wasting time on trying to achieve something that cannot be achieved. As human beings, we are not intended to be perfect, but we are intended to be good at something, even to be great at something. Maybe you can be fantastic at something, but never perfect. So a mentor would set a good example, would be a good role model. A mentor is encouraging in the way they carry themselves. Now, please note, a mentor is not always positive and optimistic. I'm going to say this again. No human being is expected to be positive and optimistic all the time. We know that there are special places for people who are always happy and always excited. No, 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 no. That is not the intention. The intention is that even though you may feel bad about something, even though you are going through tough times, you continue encouraging yourself, for starters, so that you can continue encouraging others. We know, you and I in South Africa, in the education space, part of the greater world on earth, we know that we are faced with many challenges as we speak. As a mentor, as a mentee, whether you're mentoring or whether you're being mentored, it's not about being perfect. It's not about always being positive and optimistic, but it is to remain continuously growing. It is to remain, or shall I say, it is to continue having a teachable spirit so that you can continue encouraging yourself first and foremost, and therefore be an encouragement to others. And when we're talking about providing feedback, it's always uplifting, positive, constructive feedback. Live by example also goes without saying, to give assistance, to communicate, to encourage. And ladies, gentlemen, when we are talking about giving feedback or communicating, but more specifically, giving feedback to others, I would want to suggest the following way of giving feedback. Always starting with the good, something positive, something uplifting, something that this person got right. And then you can come with your suggestions of what needs to be changed. And then you're finishing off your conversation, your feedback, on a positive, uplifting, constructive note. So let's call it a compliment, criticism, compliment, like this delicious hamburger. And if you don't like hamburgers, I think this still applies. That we start with something good, something uplifting, something that they did get right. Make suggestions as to how they can change this or that. And then you're closing off with something positive. Now, please note there are different ways in which mentoring can be done, different types of mentoring. Could be one-on-one, could be per group, peer-to-peer mentoring, and then it could be from an expert to a novice, and then it could be mentoring within the same learning area. So whatever type of mentoring, whether it's formal or informal, whether it is official or unofficial, these are the different ways or types of mentoring. Now, what can you do to be an effective mentor? And you know what, ladies, gentlemen, to some extent, this is also true for how to be an effective mentee. Mentor is the person giving the motivation, giving the advice, providing steps that the mentee can experience success, because we all know that success breeds success. So when the people that we are mentoring can experience some form of or some level of success, wow, isn't that incredible? That is so fantastic. When we can experience success, we as a mentor can experience success with our mentees. Why? Because success breeds success. So if they're experiencing success by default, it also means that we have been good at or have achieved a level of success in mentoring that person or those people. To be an effective mentor, we always need to know where we're going. In other words, we need to give direction. And maybe there could be some moments of coaching. We would provide support. We need to make something tangible by setting a goal. In other words, what are we going to try to achieve this week or this month or this term? And then to provide the necessary support and training for the person to be able to achieve the goal. Now, mentoring, basically put and simplistically said, has got 4 steps. Firstly, I would do whatever it is I need to show them or teach them. So I would do the task, and the mentee would watch and learn. Hence, the mentee has to have a teachable spirit, an open mind. So firstly, we would do the task, the mentee would watch and learn. Secondly, you and I, the mentor and the mentee, would do the task together. And then we're moving on to the third step of being an effective mentor. You, as the mentee, would do the task. The mentor would watch and give positive, uplifting, constructive feedback. And then, and this is a wonderful place for a mentor and mentee to be in. Then, as a mentor, we would step back, and you, as the mentee, would then do the task. And when you and I, in different time frames, or when you and I, as mentors, can do this with different people, different time frames, different scenarios, but first and foremost, I do something, you learn from me, we do it together, then you do the task, I watch and give feedback, so that you are then able to get to step number 4, where you can then do it yourself. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how can you and I get the most out of being mentored? to be mentored. In other words, to be the mentee. Now, please remember that sometimes, and I guess that some of you have experienced this, that you can be a mentor to someone else while you are a mentee to another person. In other words, let me say this. Sometimes you can mentor person A, but mentor B could be your mentor and you are the mentee. In other words, you can be a mentor and a mentee at the same time, but there are two or more different role players in this scenario. I'm going to say this again. You can be a mentor, although you are being mentored by someone else. And I think this makes a lot of sense. Now, how would you and I get the most out of being mentored? Number one, we've got to be daring enough. We've got to be courageous enough to say yes to this opportunity. We've got to say yes to this opportunity of being mentored so that you and I can learn more, so that we can do more, because it's when we know better that we can do better. And we always have to have a teachable spirit. And please know, ladies, please know, gentlemen, that your personal growth is important. In the education space, I often find that people within the education space are so busy educating others, because that's what we do as educators. And then sometimes, or often, we forget, but we are also supposed to be on a personal growth journey, because your personal growth is important. Why, ma'am, is your personal growth important? Why, sir, is your personal growth important? For the simple reason that you have value. You are valuable within the education space, and we need to really realize that you and I in the education space cannot give what we don't have. I'm going to say this again. We cannot give what we don't have. In other words, when we are running on empty because we have not been growing ourselves as individuals, then at some stage, you are going to reach burnout. You are going to have nothing to give to others. And chances are that the education space is going to lose you. And we do not want that. We want people who are willing to be mentored and who are willing to be mentors to others. Please remember that your personal growth is important because you are important. And that leads to bullet number 4. You are worthy of the best life has to offer. Please allow yourself to be a mentor, to be mentoring someone else, but also allow yourself to be mentored by people who are better at what they do than what you do. I'm going to say this again. Allow yourself to be mentored by someone else who is better at something that they do, that you still want to learn from them. And ladies, gentlemen, that leads us to getting to what are the characteristics of a great mentee? Now, the first bullet there, in my mind, is non-negotiable. Always be respectful. Be respectful of yourself. Respect yourself at all times. Treat yourself with respect. And when you are in the habit of treating yourself with respect, it increases the possibility, the probability that you will treat your mentor with respect. As a mentee, please be open-minded so that you can be a good listener. Because when you're a good listener, you are showing your willingness to learn something. And when you are portraying, when you are showing, when you are demonstrating your willingness to learn, it tells the mentor that you are serious about growing yourself as a human being. Because when you as a mentee give of yourself and you give your best, it does have a good and positive impact on the relationship that you as a mentee have with your mentor. Because when you give so much of yourself, chances are that the mentor would also give more of themselves. Always keep an open mind, and oh yes, remember to be mentally tough so that you can accept criticism, because when you and I choose to be a mentee, which I'm hoping all of you will do, when we choose to be a mentee, in other words, to be mentored by someone else, we need to be mentally tough because we are going to receive criticism. And that is great. That is awesome. It is wonderful when we get criticism. Why? Because if there's no criticism, learning cannot take place on your side. Because if the mentor tells you that everything is fantastic and you're making no mistakes, well, then maybe this is not the mentor you are supposed to have. Because we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And because we make mistakes in the process of learning more and growing ourselves at a professional level, because we're growing ourselves, we will make mistakes. We make mistakes. I don't know how to say this with more passion and more enthusiasm. We make mistakes. So we've got to be mentally tough to accept the criticism that the mentor is giving graciously. Not to take it personally, but to understand at a deeper level, because you are respecting yourself, because you have a teachable spirit and you are willing to learn and grow, and because you're keeping an open mind, you will know that my mentor is acting in my best interest. And then you will receive the criticism graciously so that you can learn from that and then hopefully improve next time. To communicate well is also a very important characteristic, so that you can communicate your shortcomings, whatever you would want to learn from this process, whatever you would want to get from this process. You need to communicate that to your mentor. And then obviously you need to be trustworthy, because if you cannot be trusted, nobody would want to deal with you. Please note, as I have said in the beginning, that we are always being mentored by somebody, some places, sometimes. In fact, I want to go as far as saying that we are always being mentored by friends, family, magazines, books, Bible, church, motivational speakers, moving social media, all the news. We are always being mentored, and therefore we've got to be very careful what we read. We've got to be very aware of what are the types of movies we are watching. Could it be that we spend too much time on social media, which is negatively impacting our point of view of the world? It could be having a negative impact of our point of view of what's happening in our world, our country, within the education space. So please choose your friends carefully. Choose carefully how much time you spend with your family in the context, or especially if they are having a negative impact on your mindset. Be careful. Be careful, because science all over the world has proven that the 5 people that we spend the most time with, we are going to develop their kinds of habits. We are going to become more of what they are. In other words, if 5 of the friends that we spend most of our time with are negative and cynical and critical of education, negative and cynical about what happens in the world, negative and cynical and critical of what is happening within an organization, and they're always moaning and groaning about whatever they are moaning and groaning about, then chances are that you are going to become more of that. So we need to choose our friends very carefully. Please take great care of the books you read, the speakers you listen to, the movies you watch, the amount of time you spend watching news and spending on social media. Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, you deserve the best life has to offer. So allow yourself to be in the space of, allow yourself to be in the company of those people who choose to empower you, that they take your best interest at heart. In other words, you choose the people who would want you to be great. You choose to spend time with books and people who would want you to be your awesome self. And then I cannot but agree with what Whoopi Goldberg has once said. We are here for a reason. And she said, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, I believe a bit of the reason why we are here is to throw a little torches out to lead people through the dark. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are going through dark times because it's changing, a changing world. There's lots of insecurity, a lot of uncertainties within the world, not just within the education space. And whether we choose to be a mentor or to be a mentee, we are here for a reason. And that is to throw little torches out so that we can lead people through the dark. Does anybody have any questions they would like to ask? Nhlanhla, what have you noticed?
Thank you for that, Beatrice. It's just a comment from Michelle. I guess it's from her first mentor. It says, good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. So that's a quote.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
We haven't got anything.
Okay, I see that there's a question that came in with regard to the difference between coaching and mentoring, and that is a good question. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah,
So,
there you are.
yes.
By
So when we're looking,
Marcia.
is it Marsha?
Yeah.
Okay, Marsha, thank you very much for that question. It is a very good and valid question, and I'm grateful that you're asking it so that that can be addressed. Now, when we're looking at what mentoring is, and I'm going to say this in different ways, that mentoring is you as an individual teaching others what they do not know. All right? And I'm going to keep it very simple. In other words, mentoring is when you have certain level of skills, knowledge, and you are going to teach others how to do what you're doing, to be the mentor to them. Whereas, in other words, mentoring, you have to have the knowledge in that specific field. All right? You have to have the experience in that specific field. However, coaching does not necessarily require the coach to know that specific field. So coaching has got a different way of approaching the person they are coaching compared to, for example, a mentor. In other words, saying this in another way, Marsha, when you're mentoring, you have to have the experience, you have to have the answers to the questions that the mentee may be asking. Whereas when you are coaching someone, you are guiding them to get to the answers to their life questions themselves. I'm going to say the coaching bit again. When you are coaching someone, you are guiding them to make certain discoveries themselves. Whereas mentoring, you are also guiding, but you are giving them the knowledge. You are giving them, and I'm using the word giving, you are giving them books to read so that they can read it for themselves. But you are sharing it with them, whereas a coach would get them to discover things for themselves. I'm hoping that I've answered your question. Thank you very much for the question, Marsha.
Here's
Any other
another one.
question? Okay,
Yeah.
Nhlanhla.
How do you mentor someone that is not open to be mentored? By Mana Smith.
Okay, I'm going to give you a very simple answer. You don't. Because nobody can be mentored if they don't want to be mentored. So if you have a say in the matter, please do not mentor them because you're going to waste your time. Who else has another question? Does gender and compatibility or familiarity, whatever that word is, really matter in the process of mentorship? Very good question. Ladies, gentlemen, when we're talking about gender, gender is not supposed to matter in the process of mentorship. However, if a person, let's say, for example, I as a male, want to be mentored by another male, then gender can become something that needs to be addressed because the mentee must feel comfortable with the mentor. In other words, if the mentee doesn't care whether it's a man or a woman, then gender would definitely not make it, would not impact the process of mentorship. And the mentee would also have to trust the mentor, because when there is trust within that relationship, then this is a much better journey of one person mentoring another person. So you don't really have to know the mentor personally, but the mentee must have the understanding of the mentor's knowledge of and experience of something, so that this process of mentorship can do what it's supposed to do. Another question I see here, as a young person, and thank you very much for asking that question. As a young person, what is the best way to mentor people even though they are older? Now, without knowing your specific situation or without knowing your reason for asking the question, I'm going to emphasize the importance of a person that's got experience in a specific field that another person does not have. Then you can be a mentor to that person. In other words, because we've got lots of young people in the education space that's got technological knowledge and understanding that and please, this is a very, very broad statement that I'm making now. So lots of the young people in the education space have got technological experience and know-how that the older people in education space do not have, or they're not comfortable with. So the moment that you as a younger person have experience, or let's call it a level of expertise that the older person does not have, then you from your side as a young person could offer your services, if I can call it that, and by the older person accepting your offer of helping them, guess what? You are mentoring them. I'm going to say this again. Mentoring does not have to be an official or formal thing, a formal process. But when you are of assistance to another person, guiding them to be better at doing the technology thing, or whatever the case may be, then you are mentoring a person, irrespective of their age. So, as a young person, what's the best way to mentor people? Offer your services. Anything else from that you can see?
Last question, how do I identify a good mentor or a mentee?
How would a person identify a good mentor? And
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. If any person has got more experience in a specific field, experience or knowledge in a specific field that you would want to learn from, then they would be your mentor. If a person is somebody that you look up to, if a person is somebody that you admire for whatever reason, then they could be your mentor. So that's how you would spot a great mentor. How would a mentor spot a great mentee? The moment another person approaches you and asks you to help them, to guide them, to teach them, guess what? You have identified a person who's willing to learn, a person who has a teachable spirit, and chances are that they would do what you suggest. So by somebody asking you for advice, you have identified a mentee.
I think there's one more here. Is there a possibility of a mentee being abused, unknown to them? How can one detect being abused as opposed to being mentored?
All right. Wow, that is a very deep question. Thank you very much. Who is that asking that, Shantla?
Ruben Musiane.
Ruben. Right,
Yeah.
Ruben, that is a very good question. And I'm hoping that this question is a theoretical question and does not come from personal experience. Is there a possibility of a mentee being abused without them really knowing this? Well, you know what he said, Ruben? The fact that you are not aware of this means you don't even know you are abused. It's like unconscious incompetence. So, fortunately, you wouldn't know this. However, the second part of your question is how can a mentee detect that they're being abused opposed to being mentored? The moment a mentee feels that they are expected to do something that is not comfortable to them, then it borders on being abused. All right? If a mentee is, for example, being embarrassed in front of other people, then chances are you are being abused and you should not tolerate that kind of something. A mentee and a mentor would treat each other with the utmost respect. And if a mentee feels that they are being treated with disrespect or that they are being embarrassed by the mentor, then if the mentee has a say in the matter, then that relationship should be cut short immediately, if at all possible, because you and I, as human beings, should not allow other people to treat us with disrespect and or allow other people to abuse us. I hope I've answered that question.
Right. I think we're gonna call it a day now. Thank you so much, colleagues, for tuning in. Thank you so much, Mr. Petros Jacobs for the wonderful presentation. Colleagues, let's meet again next month on the 22nd for another webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for everybody giving your valuable time, and that you consider your growth, your development as important enough so that you set time aside to attend a webinar like this today. Thank you very much. I respect you, I honor you, and please continue experiencing the greatness within yourself so that you can be part of the solution we need.